I'm C.D. Moore. I'm a retired lieutenant general from the Air Force. I spent nearly 4 decades wearing a uniform. We're here to talk about revectoring and what comes next in that third phase of life.
Hello, and welcome to the Redirect Podcast, where we have spirited conversations and tell stories about finding purpose in retirement. For us, retirement isn't an ending, it's a beginning. Time to redirect your energy, wisdom, and passion toward new horizons. Whether you've recently retired, are planning for that transition, or are years into this journey, this podcast is your companion in navigating this meaningful chapter of life. Curt, Adam, gosh, it's great to be back in the studio with you guys again here on the Redirect Podcast. I am really excited about today's conversation. You know, in the past episodes, I think we all have, but me especially, have talked a lot about always wanting to be a fighter pilot. You know, I went so far as in high school, in senior year, I took the Air Force Academy test and scored in the 90th percentile, you know, and thought this is where I'm going to go. And I could not get a senator to recommend me from my state. So kind of put that dream aside.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I know. And this is the part where, you know, I'd probably ask you guys some questions.
Yeah,
to get
looking
things
forward
rolling.
to it. Let's go.
Well,
Let's
you
go.
know what? We're not doing it. You two just sit back. I've got questions for our guest today that I want to ask. What did you fly? What jets did you fly? I want to hear about this.
Yeah, funny thing, there's a story. I was probably about 6 or 7 years old because people ask me, why did you fly? And I lived near a fighter base up in Washington State and McChord Air Force Base. And as a little kid, you'd watch the F-106s go over, and they'd sonic boom, and the house would shake. And when you're 6 and 7 years old, you go, that is so cool. So I always had it kind of in my DNA. I thought, I want to do that someday. And so as I, aged and got through high school and had opportunities, I was a football recruit, so I had a lot of opportunities to include West Point, Annapolis, Air Force Academy, but other schools. In fact, side note, I was recruited by Notre Dame. And so that was you get 6 trips. And I went to Notre Dame. And this was the year Joe Montana was a quarterback. If you ever saw the movie Rudy, all that was going on at Notre Dame. And so I made the trip out to Notre Dame, which is an impressive campus, and Dan Devine was the coach. And he offered me a full ride. I went there, did the visit, slid the papers across his big mahogany desk and said, full ride, CD. And I said, can't do it. And I just knew that I needed to go to one of the service academies. And so I weighed the pros and cons of those. And I thought, going to Air Force might give me more opportunities to do something exciting like fly. So, that's how I ended up at the Air Force Academy. I just knew that was something that I wanted to possibly pursue.
So what jets did they put you in?
So if I can jump in, because the bio's got a nice list of some things he was associated with. If you're okay with it, let me read that in. And
fire away.
Yeah. So today's friend of the Redirect Podcast is Lieutenant General C.D. Moore. He is a top graduate in engineering from the U.S. Air Force Academy. C.D. is a Guggenheim Fellow. He completed a Master of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering at Columbia University before entering flight school in 1981. He served as a T-38 instructor pilot, an operational F-15 pilot, and as an experimental test pilot. He has over 3,000 flying hours and more than 30 different aircraft. CD served as commander of the 1st F-22 Squadron and as a group commander at Elgin Air Force Base. Material Wing Director of the F-16 System Program Office, Material Wing Commander of the F-22 System Program Office, Vice President of both Aeronautical Systems Center and Air Force Material Command. CD served as the first commander of the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, an organization of 26,000 personnel responsible for total life cycle management of all Air Force aircraft, engines, munitions, and electronic cyber systems. CD retired from the Air Force in 2014. From 2015 to 2025, CD entered the corporate world, holding C-level positions with Dayton Aerospace, Caliburn International, and most recently with A3R Consulting. CD, thank you for your service.
I guess that
Welcome
answered
to the
my
Redirect.
question.
Yeah, but you got to have another question.
I have
for him.
4 questions.
Go for it.
The maximum number of G-forces that you've experienced.
Well, fighter aircraft are designed typically around 9 Gs, 9 positive Gs, negative 3 Gs. And that's why I like to say flying fighter is a young man's sport because you really beat up your body. It's one of those where you have to be an athlete. And so as you think about young people going into flying fighter aircraft, it's very physically demanding. And I think that's why I gimp around these days, because you beat up your body decade after decade flying fighters. It takes a toll, but boy, it's fun.
Do you ever eject?
Never had to eject. No, that's one of those, they say you want as many landings as you have takeoffs. You never want to do a nylon letdown if you don't have to.
The nylon letdown.
Well, funny thing, because I flew a number of different aircraft, and 3 times I lost engines in aircraft, and fortunately, all those were with fighters with 2 engines.
Nice.
All a good thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is the T-38 a training?
It's a training aircraft, right. It was also used operationally as a fighter aircraft. They call it an F-5. So it was really a good introductory aircraft for young pilots. So you get the sense of flying a fighter as a T-38.
That's cool.
Most dangerous situation you'd been in the cockpit?
Oh, my goodness. That it's funny. There's scary moments that you have when you're flying fighters. And I believe that, God had his hand on my shoulder, because there's times that I go, how did I survive that? And I joke with my wife. I said, honey, I wish my final thought would be, I love you, as I was impacting something, but normally it's, oh, crap. That's what you get on the tape when you realize that was a close call. And seriously, I lost a number of friends flying fighters, either as fighter pilots, test pilots, and I feel truly blessed to still be on God's green earth at 67 years old. Think about my friends often that I lost, particularly as a commander. You take a lot of responsibility for people that work for you and fly, and they don't come back that day. That's really tough.
How far off the deck have you flown?
Oh, well, when you fly a fighter, particularly when we were actually training to deal with the Soviet Union, it was flying fast and low. And so when you were in a fighter, typically if you were down at 500 feet going 500 knots, it's a very unforgiving environment. That's some of those oh crap situations I had where if you get distracted just for a moment, if you're going that fast, 500 feet, you can go from 500 feet to the surface in a couple seconds. Yeah, in fact, when I was learning how to train in fighters, my instructor pilot came into my first briefing, and he had a great big rock. And he threw it on the table, and he said, CD, rocks have a PK, a probability of kill of 1.0. If you hit that rock, you're not coming home. And so, I learned a lot flying fast and low with that guy and not hitting the rock.
Man.
Gosh.
The F-22s are such a fascinating bird to me because, technologically, they've been around, 22 years, something like that. And technologically, they were millennia ahead of their time. Right, and to a lot of degree, they're still kind of the big dog on the block behind. And I guess the F-35 is making some obvious headway in that. But the F-22 is still the bad boy on the block, isn't it?
Oh, it's the most amazing aircraft. If you think about our growth in technology capabilities from the 1980s with the F-117, which was really the first stealth fighter, and then we developed the B-2. With more stealth technology, and all that was lessons learned that we poured into the F-22. But it has the most incredible capabilities. I was actually the first pilot to be able to demonstrate supercruise, where you can actually go supersonic without
the afterburner.
I was the first one to go above 50,000 feet and slow speed maneuvering above 50,000 feet. That's the day that in preparation, I got with the engineers and I said, okay, if I lose both engines, how's my chances of ejecting at 55,000 feet? And I got to tell you, the engines purred, and I was working then with Pratt & Whitney because they developed the 119 engine. I came back and I thanked those guys. I said, you guys did a remarkable job developing the engines for the F-22. That was just part of being the F-22, one of the 6 F-22 test pilots early on in 1998. What an exciting time to be a fighter pilot, test pilot.
So what it's like being a test pilot? When I hear the word test, it's like, well, we're going to see how it goes. What are some of the experiences that you had in testing?
Well, when you are developing a new weapon system, that's the most exciting time to be a test pilot because you get to go where nobody's gone before. It's kind of like Star Trek. You haven't been there before, and so as a test pilot, you are helping to demonstrate the capability of the aircraft to the theorized, engineered envelope of the aircraft. So it's everything from how high, how fast, how many Gs. Is the weapon system doing what it's supposed to do? Very exciting. To be part of a new weapon system like that.
I hate to end the fanboy.
Well, wait a minute. Do you still fly?
I didn't realize this is all about aircraft.
It's not.
Do you still fly?
Yeah, funny story. When I stopped flying about 20 years ago because I was moving into the business side of the Air Force, I thought I'm going to still fly. So I'd go out and I'd rent airplanes and go do my thing. I took my wife up one time in 1987. This was up in Alaska, and we flew around, and I just thought this was the greatest thing I got on the ground. She said, "I will never do that again."
What were you in? What
it was
aircraft?
just a little Cessna.
Yeah,
but we were up there, and I was looking for moose and grizzly bears, and I was just having a ball diving down, and she got back, and she goes, "I will never do that again." I thought, you know what? I guess I'm not flying that much because I don't want to do it by myself. I want to do it with my spouse. So
I'm ready to do it with you.
There you go.
Give me a call. I'm ready to do it. I don't care. I loved the small aircraft. I loved air pockets. I'm still a 2-engine guy, though.
Yeah, but Dale, they're so slow compared to what he's used to.
Well, yeah. Well, I know. But as long as he's flying, I don't care.
Well, I get my jollies these days by riding a Harley instead. And so you can still go fast, and you can still get the wind through your hair.
Do you have a Harley out there?
I didn't ride it up here today, but I got a Harley. But I took my wife on that one time, and she got off, and she goes, "Never again." So I got to find something she'll do with me. So
that's great.
What about like a nice Ferrari?
There you go.
There you go. Top down.
I bought a Mustang, so she gets in that with me. We go fast in that. So when you're a fighter pilot, you got to go fast.
Oh, you got to go fast.
Yeah.
So revectoring.
Let's revector.
Yeah, here we go.
I hate to bring us off.
I know this is so
back
much
to earth
fun.
here a little
This is
bit.
great. This is great. So, what led you to make the decision to leave your career?
Great question. It was the most amazing Air Force career that, spending all that time in the cockpit and then taking my engineering and flying skills and then translating that into being on the business side of the Air Force. Very gratifying. I got to run some of the major weapon systems for the Air Force, the F-16, the F-22. Spent a lot of time working on F-15 and then the F-35. So all the frontline fighters, I had a chance to actually, run, manage, execute those programs, delivering combat capability. I did that for obviously about 10 years after my flying, and that was at the 34, 35 year point, and you just realize there's time for something else. Mm-hmm. And for me at that time, I just had a chance to run an organization, 26,000 people, 77 worldwide locations, doing all this incredible development on every Air Force system. And I just realized that was the pinnacle. And it was time to do something else. And I just had this inkling that I wanted to learn more and do something on the outside of the Air Force. And that was my first Revector.
Got it.
In fact, at my retirement ceremony, they call it retirement. And I said, we're not using that word. It's Revector.
Good for you.
Because I think I mentioned before to you guys, I'm a Christian. I've read the Bible cover to cover, and I cannot find that retirement word anywhere. And I think about all the people I admire in the Bible, and nobody just retired and just sailed off into the sunset. There's always something next, and for me, it was revectoring to something else.
How long have you been married?
45 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've moved all over the world multiple times.
My wife gets a medal. She moved 21 times in 35 years.
Wow.
I like to say we were gypsies, and you need to be married to a very special person that will do that will move like that. Now, the kids growing up weren't real fans of moving every year and a half, 2 years, but now they look back and see how it enriched their lives. But you're right. It's a different lifestyle.
Saw the world too.
I saw the world. Back in
at 45,000, 50,000.
Yeah, during the Cold War, we would deploy as fighter pilots. We would travel around the world. So I've been, scores of countries, but my wife wasn't. She was, at home taking care of the kids and raising the family while I was out doing the Air Force thing. And so, I got to see a lot. And ironically now at this stage of life, as I revectored a second time, part of that, and we'll talk about faith, family, friends, but with my wife, I want her to be able to enjoy some of the things that I saw. So we've got a game plan. Every year we're going somewhere.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
I made her get a passport, and we're going to get stamps in her passport, and we're going to go see some things.
That's beautiful.
That's cool.
Did you have that conversation before you got married with her? Did she know what she was going to kind of be buying into?
I would say no. My wife and I go back to second grade, and so we've known each other a long, long time. Obviously, she knew that she was marrying a military man.
Right.
Her daddy had worked for a lumber company, and they moved a lot too. So
Okay.
moving was not something that was new to her. It was second nature, and but probably could have talked more about it before we actually tied the knot. But my wife is just she's an angel, and she just adapted.
What are you enjoying about revectoring?
Well, the first time I revectored when I left the Air Force, I was so excited about being involved in corporate America. See, I'd been on the other side, dealing with the corporate side,
Right.
dealing with all the major aerospace companies, working with them to develop new capabilities for our Department of Defense. And I wanted to actually learn more about what life was like on the corporate side. So I was excited about the opportunities that I was going to have on that part of the business. When I revectored the second time, which is just this last year, it was more a sense of not excitement, but just peace, knowing that I needed to transition, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that because I think that was really important for me to realize it was time to actually make another major change.
What scares you?
Not much, actually, yet. I think as a Christian, I've become more aware of our mortality, that we only have so many heartbeats, and I think it's important for us to, all of us, particularly as men who are leaving the professional world, on what do you want to do with the heartbeats that God's given you? And in fact, as I was thinking about this conversation today, I thought about the line about, you look at a headstone, it's got 2 dates, but the real question is, what did you do during the hyphen? What's in that hyphen? And so for me, it's I'm not afraid of dying, but I do want to live life to the fullest in the remaining years.
Did you have any role models, that you said, boy, they're doing it right?
Yeah, on both cases, both revectoring. When I left the Air Force, I had some men, incredible leaders, commanders, and I watched them transition successfully into the corporate world, men that I admired. And I thought, I want to follow in their footsteps just because I so admired their ability to take their skills that they had developed during their military time and use it effectively to serve, but in a different capacity in the corporate side. And then on the second revector, I've met some amazing Christian men, Christian mentors who have really helped me think through, what do you do with that hyphen? What do you do with the heartbeats that you have left? What purpose do you have beyond the professions, whether it was military, whether it was corporate? What do you do with your purpose beyond those?
Is there any one that stands out?
Yeah, I'll mention names. Didn't know if you wanted me to do that.
No,
But,
please.
One man I truly admire, his name is Dick Reynolds. He was my boss multiple times, retired lieutenant general, and he really helped me think through life after the Air Force and moving into the corporate world. And then more recently, just a dear friend, probably one of the most godly men I've ever met, Bob Hartenstein. He is the one that I've befriended over the last 10 years. In fact, during my decision to step away from chasing the almighty dollar and working on the corporate side, he and his son run a ministry program out in Montana, and Bob invited me to join them about a year ago, and it was really life-changing for me to really reflect on life and to figure out what I'm going to do next. If I can put a plug in, it's called New Frontier Ministry. It's amazing. Chris Hartenstein runs it out in Montana. The focus is on men and their sons, and reuniting men and their sons around just their Christianity. But recently they started a program for old guys that and they call it Hold Fast. And the whole point is, what do you do with your life? What's your purpose beyond your profession? In fact, when I went out there, a side picture that came to me, and it was really it really helped me think through. And it was a picture of 3 roads. You have a road that keeps going straight, and you just keep doing what you're doing because you're comfortable, and you just keep doing that. It's kind of like, I'm going to work till I drop. The left turn on that road was you just kind of give up. You just you don't have a purpose, and you're just kind of waiting to go to greener pastures. And the right turn is make a right turn to do something new and different.
Yeah.
And for me, I said, okay, I'm not doing the left turn. That's either you're checking out.
Yep.
And I've watched men do that. I've watched them just check out. That whether it's sit on the couch and flip to the TV and drink whiskey all day, or check out completely. And I've got history of that in my family. I think I mentioned that before. But the right turn is there's new opportunities, new ground, new places to learn and be inspired. And so you got to make a right turn.
It just doesn't surprise me at all that you would take the right turn.
Right turn. In the corporate world, I was watching guys do that, and they actually would just hang on as long as possible to where their value was no longer really contributing. I didn't want to be one of those.
Yeah.
I just hang on because I'm comfortable. And I thought, there's no reason to do that when there's so many other things you can do with the time you have left.
Where in Montana?
Oh, God, it's so beautiful. Missoula. And it's near where the show Yellowstone was filmed.
Right.
It's spectacular. You got the Bitterroot Mountains, and so this new Frontier Ministry is right at the base of the Bitterroot Mountains. Absolutely spectacular, beautiful. Yeah, if you want to get back, you want to get in touch with God, you go to a place like that and you get alone time. And I had a lot of very purposeful reflection time there, just thinking about life. And the other thing that caused me to start thinking differently about life, when you start having health problems, and we probably all do when we get into our 60s and 70s. I had a couple of heart bouts, and so heart procedures. Then I had diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer, and those are the sort of things that when the docs say, if we don't go in and take care of the cancer, you may only be around 2 years. And you go, okay, well, we'll take care of the cancer, but you're never completely out of the woods. But it gives you a different reflection on how much time you have left and what are you going to do with it. Although there's a funny story, though, when I was diagnosed with it was a very aggressive prostate cancer. And, some people say, prostate cancer, you're going to die from something else. Well, not necessarily. 40,000 men a year die from prostate cancer. And, I won the lottery because mine was very aggressive, fast spreading. And so they needed to do something pretty quick with it. But ironically, as I'm dealing with that, I wake up one morning and I got this great big knot on the end of my nose. And so I thought, oh, no, you've got to be kidding me. So it was cancer on the end. So they cut off the end of my nose, while I'm all preparing for prostate cancer. I go, okay, God, I have a sense of humor here, but really? Yeah. At that point in time, you go, just cut off my nose. I don't care. Yeah.
Not to spite your face.
Yeah.
No, so you were going to go there.
But I think, the health issues have a way of at least awakening you to the fact that we are mortal. We have limited time on this earth. Whether I live 2 years or 20 years, it was a chance for me to reflect, what do I want to do with that? And that's where my North Star at that point in time became what I call the 5 Fs. And faith, family, friends were the first 3. And there's a side story because when my brother was dying of cancer, I was in with him in his ICU, and he just had days to live. And he looked at me and goes, CD, you know what, everything I was chasing, he goes, in the end, faith, family, friends. It's all that matters. Faith, family, friends. And then, as I shared that with other Christian brothers, they helped me expand it to 5 Fs. One of those, dear friend named Barack, and I know he's been associated with this podcast. Barack goes, you got to put fitness in there because if you don't do fitness, the other 3 you're not going to have you're not going to be around to do the other 3. And I said, you're right, Barack. I'm going to add fitness. And then the other one I added was fruitfulness because you want your life to be fruitful. And for me, it was a matter of, as I transitioned to the Revector the second time, was I no longer have to focus on being productive as much as fruitful.
Time for a quick break. If you're liking what you're hearing, do us a quick favor. Hit that follow button, share it with your friends and family, drop us a quick comment, and then a 5-star review. It really helps us keep going and growing. Then head over to Instagram and follow us there too. Thanks for the help. And now, let's get back to work.
What am I going to do with the time to be fruitful versus just productive?
Talk to us for a second about the difference.
Well, I think productive is very goal-oriented. You You have objectives. I'm a list guy. I was a trained engineer. As a program manager, you got to have a list. You got to check things off. And I got a lot of validation by accomplishing things. And in fact, when I was at that ministry program out in Montana, Chris Hartenstein was helping to mentor me, and he said, CD, you've spent 50 years being incredibly successful, both in the military and the corporate world, doing. He goes, I commend you to spend more time being. And to me that really resonated scripturally. Be still, listen. What does God want you to do versus just doing? In fact, it's a joke around our house right now because my wife still likes to give me a list of things to do, and I said, honey, I'm not doing today, I'm being.
Nice.
Duly noted.
I'm going to see how that goes at my house.
Yeah, it works. Well, my wife is so understanding because she knows that this has been an important transformation in my life, and she's the most incredible, godly woman, and so I think she's really enjoying watching, how God's working in my life at this stage.
I was just going to ask you about her. What does she see as changed in you?
I think my focus, because I was very focused on mission and job and producing and delivering and getting validation from that. I think a lot of men are like that. Our profession defines who we are, and getting that validation. And I believe that's why men become lost when they step away from their career because they're not getting that validation. And for me, it was liberating. It was in fact the sixth F I might add to my list is freedom. There's a sense of freedom not having to be validated by always doing and producing and delivering.
Wow. I want you to add a seventh, just says flying.
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 Maybe
F list.
Maybe
maybe
fly fishing.
Yeah, fly fishing. No, we're in Missoula. Okay, that's Missoula. Sorry.
Yeah.
How do you find that peace? Because you're talking about all this, the validation and productivity, and that's been something that's been on my mind for the last couple of months. And it's and how do you find that peace to sort of put that away?
I'll go back to my North Star. When I think of faith, family, and friends, it's an internal fulfillment of helping others. To be there for my grandchildren, be there for my family, be there for my wife. I spent 35 years so focused on my career, the mission, developing these new weapon systems, and then to find just a sense of satisfaction of being there for others. Friends, I'm very intentional about male friendships. I think there's a weakness in our society. I think it's cultural. I think men are lonely, and I think, and I encourage my male counterparts. I said, you need to be intentional, purposeful about establishing and nurturing friendships with other men, and I'm very, very intentional about that.
Have you had men in your past experiences in the Air Force as well as in the corporate world? Are they with you now, or did you find that sort of go away and now you're finding a new group of men?
It's a new group. Yeah, I like to spend my time looking to the future versus trying to hold on to the past. I have acquaintances, and a couple of my dearest friends are men that I befriended during the Air Force who are now in the same situation with me, and we have incredible bonds and spend time talking. In fact, I had a phone date with one of them yesterday. Again, intentional. We want to stay connected. We're going to travel together next month over in Europe, but it's also new friends, both whether it's couples with my wife and I, but also men that I've befriended that are just guys, just the guys getting together. But it's I just see that their men are lonely, and I think it's a problem, but you have to be intentional about it.
Are you jumping, and I'm using Air Force terms now, are you jumping into new airspace to find new organizations, to find new people, or are the organizations that you're involved with or the community that you're involved with, you're starting to get connection that way?
My first connection, when I think of faith, family, friend, it was for my wife and I to reconnect with the church body and develop relationships there. And so that to me was foundational. Now, the other friendships I have, some are through organizations that I was supporting before that I've continued to support. I still do not-for-profit work. I still do board work. I don't even like to call it work. It's just I enjoy the interactions with those people. It's exciting what we're doing together, and we've established some really good friendships, through those organizations. So I still do that. For example, I was on the board of the National Museum of the United States Air Force for a decade. Tremendous organization, involved with a research corporation in the Centerville area, making incredible impacts for our nation, doing high-end research. It's stuff that I like, stuff that I'm good at, but it's also the relationships with the people that I'm working with. So it's a little bit of both.
Did your wife ever work, or was she always stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, my wife did work early on in our marriage, with the moves and the children coming along. She did some part-time things, but really devoted her time to being the rock at home.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's in the future? What are some things that you still want to do?
Oh my! That's one of those be still and seeking God's counsel on that. What I didn't want to do is just I could race out and try to find something else to fill that void. I've been focusing, number one, on health. I want to be around a few more years, so I had to beat the cancer. And you guys saw me gimping today. I got a new knee, but part of this is being healthy. So that's been a focus. But for me right now, it's waiting patiently to see where God will lead me at this stage.
What advice would you give your 40-year-old self?
40-year-old self. Great question. At that point in time, I was at the pinnacle of my military aviation career. I think as I look back, I would not take away from the mission focus, but I would probably say spend more time really appreciating the relationships and the people. And I always wanted to do that, appreciate the people that actually made you successful. And I always tried to take care of those people to give them opportunities. But I think, relationships as you're going through that sort of intense environment, it's sometimes, the relationships, might get set aside more for getting the mission done. Yep. And then, fast forwarding, I think as I was getting closer to getting out of the Air Force, and when you make a general officer, you serve at the pleasure of the president. So you could end tomorrow, if you're a general officer, and so you never know how long you're going to be in that role. For me, it was a matter of including my wife more in what we're doing and where we're going. In fact, funny story, 40-year point. I was coming out of War College, and because I had been a fighter pilot, test pilot, the Air Force intended on making me one of the acquisition business leaders, so they gave me a choice. They said, CD, we have two places you can go. You can go to Australia, or you can go to Korea. Those are your two choices for effectively a joint acquisition job. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? I've dragged my wife all over. I'm going to call her and say, where does she want to go? And I said, honey, we have two choices. We can go to Australia or Korea.
But said that way.
But the choice is totally yours.
Totally yours.
This is where I wish we were on video. And to see CD's face.
And then I did have that inflection point, and she came back. She goes, honey, I want to go to Korea. At that point in time, we were still fairly new Christians, and there's a vibrant Christian movement in South Korea. And she goes, I want to be part of that.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so 2 days later, so this is where the rest of the story, I get a call from the people that we call them flesh peddlers, the people that actually figure out where you're going to go next. and they said, disregard those acquisition jobs. How would you like to go run the F-22 program and be the first F-22 squadron commander? And I go, I'll take that one. I didn't call my wife. So we packed up and we moved to Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert in California.
So I think God just tested you in that first one and just said, "Oh, you did pretty well there. We'll give you something you really want."
Yeah. Well, and part of that at that stage too was realizing that eventually that the children are going to grow up and they're going to move out and it's going to be just my wife and I, and I needed to be more sensitive to including her on what are we doing next. In fact, when I finally hung up the uniform in December of 2014, the Air Force will send you anywhere, wherever you want to go. You get one last move. And I said, so, honey, where do you want to go? And we kind of looked around and said, we've had 4 assignments in Ohio. The roots had gone deeper and deeper. Our kids had gone to school in Ohio. My son went to OU. My daughter went to OSU. And we said, you know what, we're just going to stay here. But that, she was part of that decision. And so, we bought our house in Centerville, Ohio, and who would have thought we're still in that same house? Yeah.
So we've chatted with some other people that have been in the military, and I as well as those that are first responders, and the camaraderie that you have and the structure that you have. Was that difficult for you when you left the Air Force, that was a big hole, or were you confident enough that you knew how to deal with it?
When I left the military, I almost seamlessly transitioned to corporate work, and I was dealing with my associates were former military as well, so I didn't really lose much in that transition. But I also realized that developing close relationships like I had in the military was going to have to be purposeful, and that's what I mentioned before, nurturing those kind of relationships. Because even in the corporate world, you work with people, they're your colleagues, they're your associates, but you may not be close. I like the joke that on people at Facebook, they have 1,000 friends. I said, they're not your friends. A true friend is somebody that you can call 3 a.m. and they'll be there. And how many can you count on your hands of people, particularly men in your lives, that they would drop everything and you would do the same for them? That's a true friend.
Yep.
And so for me, it was a matter of building and nurturing those kind of relationships. But I have to tell you, when you're in the military, particularly you're in a combat zone, you develop so the old band of brothers. You get very, very close to the people that you're serving with. And so as you step away from that, there is a void, and unless you're very intentional about building the kind of relationships that you had before.
How many guys do you have right now that are in that tight circle?
I'd say about 10.
Good for you.
And I'm
That's awesome.
Very, very intentional about it too. Because each relationship you have takes time, and it takes a commitment on your part to nurture those relationships.
Yeah, you got to invest in those things.
Oh, all the time.
Those aren't you can't have those kinds of relationships in a passive engagement.
Not at all. Not at all. And so my wife sometimes goes, honey, I think you're better at this than I am, because women, it's almost like comes natural. And I hate to to overgeneralize, but it just seems to me that women have a knack for developing close relationships. But she sees me being engaged and reaching out and spending time with men, and she goes, this is really, it's kind of a new me. And she's just like, wow.
But CD, that is a massive lesson. The need to step out is significant. Curt, you decided you needed your own kind of board of directors, and that's kind of what you're after. You're after that group that'll speak into you and be honest with you. Yes. And I think that's a really big deal for people who are in their revector or redirect stage.
And not just surface relationships. You want them to be deeper. You want them to be transparent. In fact, before I drove here today, I sent a note to one of those guys I consider a mentor, and I just said, I need some of your time. I need your wise counsel, your sage counsel on something I'm dealing with right now. But you have to have men that you can do that with, that you trust their counsel, and they're going to tell you, no, you're being stupid, and you need to rethink something.
Yep.
I want to go back to a comment that you meant earlier. When we asked the question about when you were 40 years old, and you said, family, friends, and faith. There's been many times where we can make that comment to a younger person. Somebody said that to me at that time period. But I'm so caught up in the race. I'm so caught up in the things that are going on and how I need to provide. I listen to it, but I don't necessarily hear it. I think what we're trying to do here for our younger listening audience is to sort of give little tidbits of things that they can start to do now that we're realizing after we were through that stage. Is it that easy?
Or how do you make application to that? If that truth is recalibrating your perspective, how do you encourage people to make that application?
It's your allocation of time. In fact, I probably had scar tissue. Loved my father, but my father was from the generation, the World War II generation, and his role was to go to work, provide, but not spend time with the kids. And so my father and I really didn't do anything together. I remember the one time he took me fishing, one time. And we just didn't do anything. And I said, I want to be more engaged with my children. And so I was very deliberate about the time that we carved out for family, for my daughter, for my son. And it's gratifying now because they look back and they remember. Because I said, I want to give them memories of growing up and doing things as a family, doing things with their father that I didn't have growing up. So I think, my 40-year-old self, according to my kids, I did okay. I probably didn't do as much on nurturing other relationships because you're right. You're chasing after the mission. You got to get the job done. The rat race, and if you can carve out time, which you should, to really nurture the relationships with your children, find out what really clicks with your children, and then invest in that. My son, when he was about 7 years old, there was nothing but roller coasters. He used to draw roller coasters and design roller coasters. So no matter where we went in the country, he and I would go find a place to do roller coasters.
That's cool.
But you just got to find what they love and then invest time in it. And so my 40-year-old self, I'd look back now and said, I'm so thankful I did that. I probably could have done a better job, but at least I was being intentional about doing something that I didn't experience growing up.
Yeah, were your kids in the military?
Ironically, I took both of my children out to the Air Force Academy when they were in their teens. And there's this beautiful hike that goes up to the top of the mountains overlooking the Air Force Academy. If you've ever been out there, it's just incredibly beautiful in Colorado Springs. But you're looking at the academy from the top of this peak. And so I had my daughter and son. I said, okay, guys, what do you think? Yeah. And my daughter looked at me. She goes, there is no way. And my son goes, I might. And my son's now in the Air Force. He went to the Air Force Academy.
He did.
He followed in my footsteps. The rest of the story, though, when he was 16, he came home. He was going to Dayton Christian at the time in the Dayton area. And he said, Dad, I'm going to go in the Army.
Ooh.
And that was my inside
stung
reaction.
More than it should have.
Yeah, and I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I have some dear friends that went to West Point. It's an incredible school. Let's go do a road trip to West Point. And I was so fortunate. We got to West Point, and it was probably about 90, 95 degrees. All the new cadets or plebes were doing their 20-mile rucksack run. It was just brutal. And my son watched that. He goes, oh, that's awful. And then shortly after, I took him for a road trip out to the Air Force Academy. And it was a football weekend with cheerleaders and bonfires. He goes, I like that place a lot better.
And you probably said, too, why do you want to jump out of a plane when you can fly one?
Yeah. Well, funny thing, because I was probably a little bit overboard on trying to brainwash my son to be a fighter pilot like his daddy. We built every possible World War I, World War II, Korean War model. They were hanging all over his ceiling. We went to every air show. We built remote control airplanes and flew them together. And I thought, man, I've done it. I got the hook in there. He got to the Air Force Academy, and he probably 6 months into the school, he goes, Dad, I don't want to fly. He goes, I want to be a doctor. And I go, you know what, son? It's your life, and we need doctors too. And he's now an orthopedic surgeon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's exciting.
And grandkids?
That's wild.
I have 6 of them. Yeah, the roots have gone very deep in Ohio. So I call grandchildren grandma magnets. Grandma never is going to go too far away. And in fact, being a military family, our children didn't get to know their grandparents because we were moving all the time, and so it was just more peripheral. And so my wife, being the wise lady she is, she goes, our grandchildren are going to know us.
That's cool.
That's so good.
What age range?
We've got
I'm testing you now.
1, 4, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So
And you are right in it.
Oh,
That's great.
Oh no, we
Right
see
in
them
it.
every week. We help take care of them, during the week. And so I mean,
I love that.
it's exhausting, but it's such a just a pleasure.
Such a blessing.
Oh, it's an incredible
such a
blessing.
It is.
I mean, my wife reminds me often when I'm absolutely exhausted after we've had 3 or 4 of them all day. I go, she goes, this is a phase of life. We're making an impact.
right.
Well, that's the whole faith, family, friends. Are you willing to invest in your grandchildren? Because it's not so much what you say, but them being around you and watching how you act, watching what you say, watching how you behave. We're making our impact on them now.
That's fantastic. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
What was your handle?
That's funny. That,
The call sign.
Call sign. Yeah.
You earn call signs.
Oh, I did not know
you
that.
don't give you never get your own. You earn it. Your squadron mates will give you a call sign. They tried a couple times to give me a call sign. In fact, I think when we talked before, I said, I was named after my grandfather, and he was Clyde Dewey Moore. It's a Scottish name. But my mom hated Dewey, and so they gave me Clyde D, just shortened Dewey, so I wouldn't have to carry Dewey the rest of my life. But my friends found out about that, so they wanted to give me a call sign Dewey. And I said, that ain't happening. And I said, I've already got a call sign. My call sign's CD. And so that, so I changed, from when I was a young kid, being a Clyde, I didn't appreciate the Scottish heritage as much as, I don't want to go through life being a Clyde. And so I changed it to CD when I left high school, and that kind of became my call sign.
And
That's great.
I'm going again. I'm ending as we started. Did you do hand signals? Don't the pilots before they have their own little?
Well, you have hand signals you use for the crew chiefs. Have hand signals between the fighter pilots when you're flying
For communication.
No, but I meant on the ground, like you have your own little thing. I was watching
like throwing gang signs.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
I was watching like the Thunderbirds, and they have like their own little call sign, their name, but then they also do something with their hand to sort of their signature.
Depends on the squadrons you're flying with. Often there'll be something you do, and it's really between you and the other fighter pilots and the crew chief. Yeah. But it's more of a bonding thing between you and your unit that you do. So no, we don't have any secret handshakes. Although we do, we do challenge coins. Challenge coins. Right?
Yeah.
I've got several hundred challenge coins at home, and
that's great.
Yeah, it's a neat story that goes back to World War I. Yeah,
and I forgot it.
Yeah. So you pull out that challenge coin. If they don't have it, they buy the first round.
So it's tough. You got to be carrying around 1,000 of them in your pocket.
I wondered if do you have one on you?
I don't now. No.
Oh,
I didn't think you guys were going to make me buy today. So that's
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us, telling us your story.
It's a pleasure.
Getting to know you has been a real treat.
Well, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, and I can't say enough on thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I did not serve in the military, and I feel that's a miss in my life. But again, that's where God had me.
Amen.
But it is such a pleasure to sit across from a gentleman who's so distinguished in the Air Force and all the things that you saw and did. I thank you for all that. Thank you so much. And today's conversation was great. Dale?
And thank you for the 5 Fs.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you ever need somebody to fly with you, please give me a call. I'll go up with you in anything.
Yeah. So. You want to list anything as far as someone who wants to get in contact with you, or don't you want to go there?
I can give you my contact information, so if somebody does reach out, I'd be happy to
awesome.
follow
info@redirect-u.com.
Yeah,
that's the place to go.
Happy to talk to people.
But we're honored to have you, so thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the time.
And thanks for joining us on the Redirect Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Redirect Podcast. We would like to thank the University of Cincinnati 1819 Innovation Hub for allowing us to record our episodes at the eSports Innovation Lab recording studio. Don't forget to tell your friends about the Redirect Podcast and have them follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Instagram. Want more information? Do you have a question for Curt, Dale, or Adam? Or would you like us to consider a topic that interests you for a future podcast? Send us an email at info@redirect-u.com. Remember, the journey isn't over. It's just redirected. There's purpose in your life. Find it and do something about it. Hey, I've got one more comment. The Redirect Podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We engage in an open, honest conversations about personal growth, life transitions, and the lessons we've learned through our own experiences. While we speak as experts in our own lives, we are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or certified coaches. The content shared on the Redirect Podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of qualified professionals for any physical, mental, or emotional concerns that you may have. We're grateful to share this space with you and hope that our stories inspire reflection and connection. If you're in need of more support, we encourage you to connect with a trusted professional who can help.